If you feel exhausted all the time, not just tired, but deeply, inexplicably drained, it is not because you are weak, it is not because you are lazy, and it is not because something is fundamentally wrong with you as a person. There is a very specific biological process happening inside your brain and your body right now that is stealing your energy before you even get a chance to use it. And in this video, I'll explain exactly how it works and how to fix it. I've spent years studying the relationship between the brain, stress, and the human body. And out of everything I've learned, this is the one thing I wish more people understood. Because most people who feel this kind of exhaustion spend years blaming themselves for something their brain is actually causing. Here's what most people think when they feel this way. They think they need more sleep. They think they need a vacation. They think if they just rested enough, the exhaustion would go away. So they sleep 9 hours and wake up still tired. They take a weekend off and come back Monday feeling exactly the same. And then they start thinking, maybe this is just who I am now. Maybe I'm just someone who's always going to feel this way, but that's not true. And here's how I know. Think about a time you were genuinely excited about something. A trip, a new relationship, a project you actually cared about. You probably stayed up late. You probably skipped meals. You ran on very little sleep, and somehow you were not exhausted. Your brain was producing enough energy to keep you going for hours. That same biological system still exists inside you right now. It hasn't disappeared. It's just been hijacked. And the good news is that's completely reversible. So what is actually happening? To understand this, you need to understand one system in your body called the HPA axis. That stands for the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. And I know that sounds complicated, but stay with me. Because once you understand how this system works, the exhaustion you feel will finally make sense. The HPA axis is essentially your brain's stress response system. When your brain perceives a threat, whether that's a lion chasing you, a difficult conversation, a deadline, or even just scrolling through bad news, it sends a signal down through this axis that tells your adrenal glands to release a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is your body's primary stress hormone, and in small doses, it is genuinely useful. It sharpens your focus, it mobilizes energy, it gets you ready to act. This is the system that kept your ancestors alive when real physical danger was present. The threat arrives, cortisol spikes, you respond, the threat passes, cortisol drops back to baseline, the whole system resets, and you feel fine. But here's what's interesting, your brain cannot tell the difference between a physical threat and a psychological one. It cannot distinguish between a lion outside your cave and an email from your boss that you haven't opened yet. Both register as threats. Both trigger the exact same cortisol response. And in the modern world, where the threats never actually go away, this system never fully resets. Your phone buzzes with a notification. Cortisol. You see something stressful on social media. Cortisol. You have a difficult conversation. Cortisol. You worry about money at 2 a.m. Cortisol. None of these threats are physical. None of them require your body to actually do anything, but your HPA axis doesn't know that. It keeps firing, and day after day, week after week, your cortisol levels stay chronically elevated, never spiking high enough to feel like real stress, but never dropping low enough to actually let your body recover. And here's the part that most people don't realize. Cortisol is expensive. Producing it constantly costs your body enormous amounts of energy. Every time your HPA axis fires, it is pulling resources away from your immune system, your digestion, your cellular repair processes, all the things your body normally does to keep you healthy and energized, and redirecting them toward this stress response that never actually resolves. Over time, your body starts to run out of resources. Your adrenal glands become fatigued. Your cortisol output starts to dysregulate, meaning sometimes it's too high, sometimes it drops too low, and your brain loses the ability to manage the rhythm properly. And when that happens, you feel it as this deep, heavy, bone-level exhaustion that sleep does not fix. Because the problem is not that you need more sleep. The problem is that your nervous system never fully leaves the threat response, even when you're lying in bed. Dr. Robert Sapolsky at Stanford University has spent over 30 years studying exactly this. He conducted a famous long-term study on wild baboons in Kenya, specifically the ones at the top of the social hierarchy, the ones with the least external threats, the most food, the most safety. And what he found completely changed how scientists understood stress and exhaustion. The baboons at the top, the ones who should have been the most relaxed, were actually some of the most chronically stressed animals in the group, not because of physical threats, but because of psychological ones. Status anxiety, social competition, the constant low-level vigilance of maintaining their position, and those baboons showed the exact same markers of chronic cortisol dysregulation that burned-out humans show. Elevated baseline cortisol, suppressed immune function, disrupted sleep patterns, and a kind of exhaustion that had nothing to do with physical exertion. Sapolsky's conclusion was striking. He found that in humans and animals alike, it is not the big acute stresses that break you. It is the chronic, unresolvable, low-level psychological stress, the kind that never has a clear end point, that depletes your system completely, which means you are not exhausted because you did too much. You are exhausted because your brain has been quietly running a stress response in the background for weeks or months without ever getting the signal that it is safe to stop. Now you might be thinking, but I don't even feel stressed. I'm not going through anything particularly hard right now, so why am I still exhausted? This is the most common thing people say, and the answer is that chronic cortisol dysregulation does not always feel like stress. By the time your HPA axis has been running in overdrive for long enough, it stops feeling acute. It just becomes your baseline. Your brain adapts to it. You stop noticing the background hum of low-level threat response, but your body is still paying the cost of it every single day. The exhaustion is the bill arriving. So here is how you fix it, and the fix is simpler than you think, but it requires you to understand that you are not solving a sleep problem. You are solving a nervous system problem. Step 1 is to give your nervous system a genuine resolution signal. Remember, your HPA axis fires because it perceives a threat, and it stays active until it gets the signal that the threat is over. In the wild, that signal came from physical movement. You ran from the lion, you escaped, your body physically discharged the stress hormones through movement and the system reset. In modern life, that discharge never happens, so you have to create it deliberately. 10 to 20 minutes of physical movement, walking, any exercise, after a stressful period literally metabolizes the cortisol in your bloodstream and sends your HPA axis the resolution signal it has been waiting for. This is not optional. It is the most direct biological reset available to you. Step 2 is to eliminate low-grade threat inputs for at least 90 minutes before sleep. Your HPA axis does its most important recovery work during the first few hours of sleep. But if you spend the hour before bed consuming news, social media, or anything that registers as a low-level threat, your cortisol stays elevated going into sleep and your brain cannot complete the recovery cycle. No screens with threatening content 90 minutes before bed. This single change has more impact on next day energy than almost anything else. Step 3 is what Sapolsky calls finding your resolution behavior. And you need to do this tonight. Think of one activity that your nervous system genuinely associates with safety. Not relaxation in theory, actually safety, something that when you do it, your body physically settles. For some people, it's a specific walk. For others, it's cooking or a particular kind of music or a conversation with one specific person. Whatever it is for you, schedule it today. Not as a reward, as a biological necessity, because your HPA axis needs repeated, genuine safety signals to begin recalibrating back to baseline. So you are not exhausted because you are weak or lazy or broken. You are exhausted because your brain has been running a stress system designed for short-term physical threats in a world that delivers non-stop psychological ones, and it never got the signal that it was safe to stop. Do the movement, cut the inputs before sleep, and find your resolution behavior tonight. Your nervous system already knows how to recover. It just needs you to stop giving it reasons not to. If this helped you understand something about yourself that you couldn't explain before, subscribe, new video every other day, and tell me in the comments, what does your exhaustion actually feel like? I read every single one.